Today's going to be wild. Today's going to be wild. A wild card in many games is a card you can play at any point. That is this work. We're trying to teach it to you for a very specific reason. The ways that work in most of the world, though not all, the ways that work are out of tune with true love, true consciousness, universal consciousness, and love itself. The entire transition of human cultures at this time in his story is designed to bring us from a karmic reality into a loving reality. And make no mistake, loving reality is free from a karmically driven society. It's not free from karma, but it's free from a society that's driven by karma. I make no promises about what happens today. It has never been so on the edge for me. I'm on the 9th day of a fast. It's a water, coffee, and tea fast. No fats, no sugars, no nutrients. I'm alive. Never been so effective. This is the best long fast I've ever done. I'm very, very appreciative and excited about it. It's been torturous at times, but a fast is a time when you can do your work. So once you develop the mechanisms, the tools for how to move through certain layers of tension, it's like purposefully saying, bring it to your own karma. Now let's be quick here. Karma is the presence of momentum that you don't want. When you have momentum that works in the world, it's not holding you back. It's not detrimental. But karmic momentum is running counter to the way of life that you intend to create, which is ultimately, I hope, in tune with the world herself. Now, when human culture is still driven karmically, you can have pretty negative karma that's in tune with your community, that's in tune with your society, and your race or culture. But as the mechanisms that allow cultures to be driven by karma begin to deteriorate and collapse, the only thing that's left to hold is love itself. Now, I've said this often. We're going through 10 years. 10 years. 10 years of confusion. 10 years of fear. 10 years of deterioration. And this is why. Because the mechanisms that you know of as stable are not healthy. The world is not well. And to appreciate how sick it is, you can't just kind of like, oh, yeah, it's too bad those people have so much power. And it's too bad that this works this way. And gosh, I wish it was different. You got to dig deeper. Now, I want to give you a very simple analogy that I want you to remember. If I'm on a path and there's a zone ahead of me, I'm in a plain of sorts, and it's over rolling hills. And I'm where I want to be. There's sun out, there's flowers out, there's beautiful streams. I'm where I want to be. Well, if I turn around and look backwards and there's a forest that doesn't look well, it's like not a healthy forest. You tell me to go to that forest, you're a bit of an asshole. That's not where I'm supposed to go. You put pressure on me to go back to that forest. You tell me I'm a coward for not going to that forest. You're an asshole because that's not where I belong. But if I am on the other side of the forest, the plains, the streams, the flowers are ahead of me, and there's a dark, somewhat scary forest in the way. It's not, I mean, look, some forests are awesome and scary, but they're still healthy. This is not a healthy forest. But this unhealthy forest is between me and where I need to be. You tell me I need to go through that forest. You build my courage. You build my resilience. You train me in how to move through that forest. You're awesome. Same advice, wrong context. So the same advice in many contexts can be both right and wrong. If a teacher or a guide doesn't understand where you are, they could be telling you to go backwards with deep assurance. Now, the way YouTube works, the way the world of social media works, it's critical that you understand this. You have to. Nobody else can do this for you. Because on social media, I'm not with you. What I could do is do my thing over and over and over again and hope that I'm clear enough that I attract the people who genuinely need my guidance. And if I'm helping you to build the resilience and resolve to move through that forest, and you're on the other side of the forest, in this context, I'm not an asshole. I'm just not what you need. So if you discover that I and this channel and our community is not what you need, go with God. Go with love. Bless you. If you truly believe you are where you belong or you know how to get there, awesome. But if you put us down, if you denigrate me and tear me apart in order to try to determine your own direction, kind of like pushing off, you're developing some bad karma that's going to come back to haunt you, just so you know. Now, recently, I've been developing a much deeper level of awareness. Now, this is pretty awesome. Now, I'm guessing that most of you have encountered creators who say, consciously, and I really respect this, they say, I'm putting this out there for exactly who needs it. So they know that they're shaping a form of guidance that's specific. It's not for everybody. And they put that disclaimer in. I really appreciate that. And then they're saying, I'm really making a prayer that this reach far for the people who need it. So we're doing that. And I want to introduce you to the fact that this skill of intentionally praying to reach out to exactly who needs it has more levels. Like, you can advance in your capacity. Because the same ability I have to sort of reach out into the field and attune to gather the people who need this work allows me to recognize what's happening. I can sense what's happening around us in the community we're gathering in the several layers. And there have been several layers of involvement or presence that are not okay. So I've been, over the course of this fast, I've been culling. Now, when was it? Thursday, last Thursday before the channeling, I did a deep dive on this. And I went with guidance and I made some very specific prayers. And I want to tell you the three major prayers because I was feeling the lack of coherence to all the people who've gathered. And so I worked with one of my primary guides. And we determined three things. And she draws me out, like she makes me reach, but she helps too. And we determined three no's. We're going to start with the first. The first is really clear, and I really want you to understand this. I want people to leave. Yes, I actively want people to leave who are not committed to your own healing. Now, I want you to appreciate how deep this intention goes. Many people wrestle with their pain, their baggage, their trauma. And once you get from your trauma to half a step away from your trauma, you're like, oh, thank God, I found some peace. This is better. I'm not in my trauma. That's not healing. People often get stuck in this purgatory state. They live their negative memories as a hell, and they are so grateful to get away from that they really don't know how to let go of where they get. Now, in classic psychology, this is called maladaptive, and I really encourage you to appreciate this term. Maladaptive is saying, yeah, it's really healthy to take a step out of your trauma and to get to here. But once you're sort of centered in this step, you got to keep going. You don't want to live in relation to your trauma. You don't want to live in a choice that rejects your trauma in order to become something that isn't your trauma. Or another classic ability to relate to this concept is, my father was too aggressive, so I'm going to be really, really nice. Well, if you're too nice, you don't draw boundaries. It has its own problems. But if you've made your decisions in relation to something negative, you're not free from that just because you make it the opposite. So to be truly free, you have to transcend. You have to fully heal. Healing does not mean just rejecting the past. It means taking the karmic energy of the past and bringing it into stillness, so you can make a choice free from the vote of your trauma. You don't need to have done this. You need to want this. Because let me put it in context. I've got many people who pay me well to help them heal. They're clear, they're strong, they're sharp. I encourage them to do this, they do it. I encourage them to do this, they say, that didn't work for me. I say, what would work better? We formulate a new plan, they do this, and they do it. They don't struggle with me. They don't give me their daddy issues. They don't blame me when things don't work. They come back and question and say, I tried that. I feel like shit. Okay. Let's readdress what you just did. Let's see it again. Why do you think that went wrong? We work together. Somebody who's not committed to healing comes to me. I work with them. I lay down a plan or some guidance. It's a starting point. You're supposed to try it. If it doesn't work, we come back and keep working together. But they just try it once. They go, oh, that made me feel like shit. Daniel's an asshole. He's this, he's that. Holy shit, you can't pay me enough to put up with that. And yet, I've got a fair number of people like that. And that's why I'm saying, leave. Next, conspiracy theories. Now, this is why I say this. I am not upset if you explore conspiracy theories, quote unquote. A lot of things are true, embedded in what have been called conspiracy theories. But if you simply get off on exploring a wide range of extreme themes, you're essentially spiritually bypassing. Now, it's tough to tell the difference, but the difference is actually quite simple if you look in the right places. Can you go back to your normal life and be improved by your interest in extreme themes? Do your relationships around you improve? Now, maybe not in a week, but in a couple months. Over the course of a couple months, if you're doing deep dives on a particular extreme issue, is it enhancing your life? Or are you kind of going off the hook? If you're kind of going off the hook, what you're really doing is exploring something extreme, outside the mainstream, outside anything you've ever known, just because it helps distract you from your pain. You're not really interested in aliens. You're not really interested in learning whether fluoride messes up your pineal gland. It does. You're trying to distract yourself from life because your life and ultimately your body is full of negative karma and pain. You've got trauma stuck in you. And as we established in the first principle, you need to be committed to fully healing. Now, notice you don't have to succeed. You have to be committed to it because your commitment is your guidance through the process. When negative things come to the surface, if you are a dilettante, you're bypassing, you're exploring without a clear intention, negative things come to the surface and you're going to react against the people around you. You're going to look for blame. You're going to externalize your problems. And ultimately, that could hit me and the people around us in the community we're building. And that sucks for us. If you're committed to your healing, you go through the process, you're exploring, you're searching, you're learning about all this information about alien presence. Yeah, they're real. But you're also looking at it with this cold, sober state. Just because extraterrestrials are real does not mean every story about them is real. Does not mean every expert is explaining it clearly. Does not mean every vantage from which you look at the story is accurate. You have to have a really deep presence, grounded in spirit, grounded in mind, grounded in body, to parse through the confusions coming to the surface. And if your calling is to do that, awesome. Just don't do it to bypass reality itself. Do it to extend our culture, our reach. The stratosphere is lifting. You want to be part of that? Awesome. Take care of yourself while you do it. So in this context, a conspiracy theorist is not really looking for truth. They're looking to avoid reality and ultimately themselves. Bye-bye. Now the final one. You got to love us. You got to love us. If you are not based in love, if you don't return to love when things get confusing, if you don't come from a place of love, you're essentially playing an old karmic game. Now, let me put it to you simply. When I was younger, 27, and I'm 50 now, I learned to manifest quite acutely. I manifested $2,000 within a week of intending to when a man walked to my door and offered it to me. And then I was able to do this, this, and this, and I just got better after that. But then I went into a new zone. I'm like, I stopped caring about things. I didn't even have to go very far. I was doing the work. I was reading all the right books, listening to all the right teachers. I didn't need to get a mansion before I learned this lesson. So then I started praying for relationships. You want to know what happened? It worked. I got my list. This trait, this trait, this trait. I'm not even going to make fun of myself in this moment. Several times it worked. You know what I got? Not love. Now, love was present, but it wasn't driven by love. It was driven by a list. It was driven by filling in categories and sharing activities. Now, there's nothing wrong with that, but there's something wrong with being driven by it. So if you're seeking reality based in a mental understanding of how things work, you're not in your heart. If your ideas don't tune with your heart, there's a reason. You need to seek for the energy of whatever you're considering, whatever you're contemplating, whatever you're dreaming of has to tune with your heart. If it doesn't tune with your heart, you have to recognize that that's a profound statement. It's not just a vote. That has to be an internal, deeply, deeply incorporated understanding with severe discipline that if your ideas, intentions, and dreams are not in tune with your heart, there's something wrong with them. Doesn't mean you throw them in the garbage. It means you keep retuning them until the connection between your third eye and your heart opens. You wrestle with them. You see them from this angle and this angle. You commit to taking the time and space to reform your intentions and dreams, to loosening your grip enough to let divine guidance help you tune your dreams to your heart. And if you're not doing this, that's how you'll treat us. Things go wrong, you'll join the community. We have a really awesome, thriving community. We're really just starting to flower. We only just started to advertise. The strength and power and presence and camaraderie and friendship and love in our community is sacred to me. It's more sacred than our view count by far. And if you're going to come in and the intensity of our love and power and passion bring you to life, and this life stirs up, dredges the gunk from the bottom of your psyche, your spiritual center. Deep love dredges you. It forces you to face your pain, your fear, your baggage, your karma. And if your reaction to that experience is to flip around and turn and blame someone around and create drama, get the fuck out. Have I made myself clear? Okay, that's enough on that theme. But I do need to do these. So you want to know something funny? I'm working with our spiritual liaison. We have a spiritual liaison to YouTube. Make no mistake, the major entities of the earth all have spiritual presence that's more powerful than their physical real world one. The human beings who guide these systems, all the major corporations, governments, and cultures, the spiritual presence is more powerful than the human presence. And we have a spiritual really. Okay, she's saying that's not really. Guide is fine. We have a spiritual guide from YouTube. And she was talking with me about this. And she said, when do you want to take off? And I like breathed a little and I said, we need 3 more months. And she said, why? And I expressed that I didn't feel like a lot of these issues were coherent. And she helped me articulate them into these 3 themes. That I was erring towards saying more without being clear about more of what. So I needed to say no to these 3 themes, which are types of people, characters that we've attracted who don't belong in what we're creating. Then I released the video the next day and it bombs. It's the worst spreading channeling in half a year. I find that terribly amusing. And beautiful. And really beautiful. Because getting our ducks in a row, getting our foundation set matters more. There are some extraordinary people around us right now. Many of you have lots of experience that I don't. This is my particular calling. I'm made for it. I love it. And I'm honestly quite humble. In fact, in certain ways, I still carry the baggage of learning to be humble. I spent 10 years traveling this country. I lived in more places than I can count. In many, many cases, I was living under the roof of someone who I didn't fully respect, but I respected them. I felt the difference between their generosity and ultimately, in certain respects, their charity and the truth of my values. And so I sat in their space and I sat in their vibes and I made the prayer, how can I communicate with this person in a way that's actually going to work? I didn't start fights. I didn't grandstand. I didn't push the limits in the ways that might be classically egoic. I didn't mind if I got insulted or put down. It stung, but I did it anyway. They said they needed the dishes washed in a little bit of an authoritarian way. I became a very good dishwasher. And I made it good. One of my first teachers, Thich Nhat Hanh, one of my very first spiritual teachers, he wrote a book, The Miracle of Mindfulness, in which he talks about you learn to do the dishes to do the dishes. So when I was pressed to do the dishes by assholes, I did them again and again and again. And it was at first a lot of work. Not the dishes, but the sting of being pushed around, being mistreated. And ultimately it really, really did turn me into a much better person. Now I have very few strong egoic reactions to things. I don't really mind much when people insult me. It stings, I flinch, and I come from a space of what's the healthiest response? So I say this because this is how I'm responding now. And I'm working with forces that it's necessary to be able to dive deep into the, I'm inclined to say cold space from which we can make much better decisions in the face of the heats of passions that are awry, out of line, out of harmony with love. I need to teach you these skills. I came to the edge of death more than 50 times. Now, I say it that way because under plenty of circumstances, it's likely I wouldn't have died. But I felt it. Over the next 10 years, there's no telling when danger's going to come your way. You have to be the kind of person that can navigate through these changes with grace, respect, and care. And the lessons I'm about to teach you are some of the most important that I can possibly share. And I hope I can complete at least a decent version by the end of this time. How much time I got? Oh, there we go. All right. In about 10 minutes, a little less, I'm going to do a yoga break. Please join me. If you leave, go outside. If you leave for another channel, honestly, I'm inclined to petulantly, a little pissingly say, just leave. Like, I want you to take care of yourself. Get used to getting up and doing 1 or 2 minutes of yoga often. And I'm preparing you. Now, listen, this is crucial. If we were to break this down to the simplest way of understanding it that I can convey, I would suggest that what we have already begun to go through is a collective ego death. Now, an ego is not bad. An ego is the vibrational consistency of your aura. You're building in foundational senses of self. And there's a lot of advantages in doing this when you're in tune. But when you build an ego in relation to the past, you build an ego in relationship to the challenges and the acculturation and the inheritance of your past, and then it comes time to change it, and you can't change it because you develop that ego with a sense that this is who I am and this is who I will be for the rest of my life. So you have believed that for years, and now the world is saying, whoa, changes are bigger than that. And you're saying, you can't do this to me. This is who I am. And so you fight, ultimately, the rhythms and the frequencies and the vibrations and the song of the earth. When you don't allow your ego to die, you can't become the kind of person that allows your ego to change. You will in the future go through several more changes of your ego, but if you develop an ego, a clear understanding of yourself, with consistent rhythms of patterns that are open to change, then you won't have to go through an ego death in anything like what's happening now. Now, it's likely that many of you, I'm thinking maybe a third, have done this. Kola kavod. Congratulations. Good for you. This is awesome. Now, as you rebuild a new ego, don't build it around something in such a tight way that you can't let it change again in the future. Build the kind of life, habits, relationship to reality, and ultimately ego. By the way, I think I deserve so many more donations than I get, which at the moment is 0. When you consider that there is nothing that will prevent whatever you're doing now from being forced through another range of change, you build a relationship to who you are becoming that is willing and ready and even eager to let go when the time is right. My children are going through changes. I have a 3 and a 7-year-old. They're going through changes that it's like these phases, and it's so beautiful. When I ride it with beauty, it's awesome. They go through a suffering, a fear, a confusion, a change, and I'm like, oh, it's a change. I let go of what I loved about them. I say, that was really beautiful. I'm so glad we shared that. It's time to let it go. And I start being curious about where are they going? What are they becoming? And as I allow myself to grieve the past, certainly, but not fight to keep it. There's a difference. I'm not fighting to keep them in the sweetness or cuteness or adorableness that they used to be. I'm saying, thank you so much for sharing that with me. I let this go. Then I look at their turmoil, their confusion, as legitimate growing pains. And so I'm present with them and I remind them and I teach them. 3 and 7, I tell them these things. They understand. In fact, they're tremendously relieved that I help put in context the turmoil they're feeling. And then we start being curious. What are the signs of the new? What are the signs of the inspiration? What are the signs of the dramatic new phase that's trying to be born? This is obviously a metaphor for you, the culture, and the world. Look for the signs of change. Look for the inspiration. Seek it with disciplined, fierce, committed determination. You hold that, you don't obsess about everything that's collapsing. Now, this is where the prophetic time starts to start. After our yoga break is going to be prophetic. More prophetic reality than you're going to find anywhere else. And I'm going to put this out here very clearly. I articulated to you my relationship to ego. I am not stating ego. I am stating fact as I know it. You show me anyone on YouTube who knows to do what I'm going to do in the next half an hour. You show me, and I'll say that's a friend. I won't be offended. I won't be threatened. I'll be like, thank God other people are doing this because I don't see them. And I have no desire to be out here completely on my own, but I am sick and tired of bullshit getting a lot of attention. Here's what's happening. The mechanisms that kept us together, that kept us coherent as first individual societies and then a somewhat fragile but emerging global culture, they're breaking down. They serve their purpose. In order to say goodbye to them, we actually have to respect them for what they've been. We have to respect them for what they've been. We can't just say no to them. I'm going to write a story in the closing half hour that's going to look brutal at first. It needs to be. This brutality is necessary to destroy what has been because a lot of people don't want to let it go. But I'm going to conclude with a very elegant and deeply, deeply true appreciation for what we are destroying. You can't destroy the past unless you understand what it is. You can't just keep saying no to it without a full comprehension of what it has done. I'm setting you up to understand this so you will be able to ride through this. We're on a ride. The health of this arc, thank you. The health of this arc is that I get to tell you that I made $12,000 last year because I am so committed to making sure we build this the right way. I've gotten brand deal offers, actually. Let's think about what it would look like for me to suddenly start advertising Corel in the middle of this ad. Fuck that. Now, if anything, I think I'm a little too fierce, and that's like, well, cry me a river. I only made $12,000. There's a lot of ways I could have made more money that I said no to. I'm learning to say yes. I'm a little too restricted. I'm learning to say yes. And I assure you, I really appreciate it when you support us now as we're developing into, it's just that edge of pushing through the ground, the sprout seeking the light. Thank you. Now, one lesson, I think this is going to time well. Wow, I'm having a hard time seeing. No, it's not. Yoga break time. I am in a good mood. What you're going to do now is choose 1 or 2 minutes of yoga. What's going to get your heart rate up? that got my heart rate up. Last year during my fast, I'm doing a fast 10 days every year this time. You're welcome to join us in the rhythm. 4 fasts a year. This is the long one. Solstices and equinoxes. Last year, this fast, you dig deep. You remove the need to digest food. Your mind goes fast. And you find all the things. You fundamentally change your relationship to reality. And so you shake up your system enough to get a different perspective on everything. It's the most valuable part of the fast. Second most valuable is how it transforms your digestion. Your relationship to food, whew, I know exactly what I need. I don't long for anything I don't need. No desire for sugar, no desire for pizza, no desire for cookies, no desire for anything processed, nothing. What I want is super clear. And I just ruminate on it. I fascinate on it. And for the next year, I carry this guidance. It's so much easier to make the choices I need. I want nuts. I want chicken. I want fish. I want rice and beans. I want lentils. I want eggs. I want sprouts. I want broccoli. I want it. And when I build this desire, whoosh, it's so much easier to just chips. Yuck. Now we're about to go into full prophet mode. And I think that you know that this is my abode. I've lived here so long, you cannot yet see the depths of reality that have been owned by me. I was here before this, that, he, and she. I know exactly where we all need to be. I'm here to guide you. I'm here to say, well, there is not a better story we're going to tell, because this story has yet to be told. We are younger than young. We are bolder than bold. And I'm telling you now, we are older than old. You reach way back down and you find beneath the cold, there are seeds that are sprouting. They're screaming. And they've just begun shouting. Shut up. All cease your pouting. You got to toughen to feel this new outing, because we shall be traveling. Here, and here. We shall be dancing through rages and fear. We shall be finding the grace and the love. We shall be knowing the guidance from above. We shall be taking exactly what we need. We shall be destroying the essence of greed. We will destroy the essence of greed. We will tune in to just what we need. Then we will take a little more fun. Then we will take the story that's yet to gun. Underneath all of this, there is a way that we can learn essences where we can play. We can learn love and we can choose dance. We can choose everything well beyond chance. We can tune into the grace and the joy. We can be something that all will employ. Because I here right now am in service to love. I am remade by the essence above. I am remade by the courage below. I'm of the roots and I let them flow. There's a poison that has united this reality. There's a poison that has united the world. It was a cost. She did it on purpose. It said, with all these different countries and all these different gods and all this different guidance, what holds us together? Sex and money. And she let them win. That's the common bond that cut through people's faith. That's the common bond that cut through people's sacred ways. And it needed to. Because when you think your ways are righter than their ways, you kill. And when you fuck each other and trade, you have a reason not to kill. It's a terrible sacrifice, but it's the way it's worked. And it was grounded in patterns that could be shared across the world. Global corporations didn't really care about their religion. They designed networks of connection, and the connection itself was the point. And it came at a terrifying cost. Terrifying cost. Right now, we have 3, 4, 5 terrible things that I want you to address and look at. First is easy. The music industry. It's completely toxic. In the past 20 years, I can't name a single mainstream musical artist that moves me. Now, I'm not saying they don't have something to them, but let me tell you something. They sold their soul. They sold their soul, and for no good reason other than money and fame. Now, the ones that were actually guided by the earth, good on you. Bless you. But the reality is, musical artists make about 4% of the profit they generate. And there is no essential reason anymore for the mechanisms that uplift them. There used to be it used to be necessary to tap into musical distribution ways, to print the CDs, to advertise, to spread, to design concerts, etc. But Eddie Vedder taught me this hardcore. Ticketmaster had no right to run this show. None. They drove up the price more. They drove up the price more. They drove up the price more. Why? Because it's medicine to people. And they could. You can't say no to your medicine. You can't. It's an addiction. And there are these layer upon layer upon layer of greed attached to it. Prince taught me this. You see his interview on, I believe it was Letterman. He broke it down super clear. What do you think is fair for how much an artist makes and how much the industry makes? 50%? It's immediately what I'd come to. They make 4. So why is it that so many people try to be famous this way? Interesting. Why? I wonder. Because they're assholes who don't mind tearing each other apart. That's what I want to say. Prove me wrong. Don't tell me how good someone is. Show me that they didn't cannibalize the other people they knew like them. I was performing in a Lower East Side theater 20 years ago. I was doing decently. I had someone offer to be my producer. I talked to the owner of the theater. It was a really cool Lower East Side, like underground hardcore space. Some of the most extreme characters I've ever seen, and I did well there. And someone came to me afterwards and said, "You were the best." And I said, "Oh, I was the best." Got in with the In Circle, and I was staying overnight at the guy who owned its place. His girlfriend liked me, and that seemed to make him happy. Kind of odd. And I'd had a talk with him late at night. And he was strange about it. He was talking to me about my emerging success, but he was cautious. And I didn't read him like I expected to. You know what he said? I said, "What's wrong?" I asked him. He said, "It's been amazing doing this. But the problem is, you watch the people who succeed, they have to eat people. This is not how it started. There was initially a movement of love. They thought it was of love, but it got way out of hand. It got way beyond out of hand. Yet, at the beginning, they loved each other. They uplifted each other. They held each other. They sang each other's songs on a level that drove the system. I'm not saying these things don't still happen. I'm saying they happen within the oversight of corporate megalords who don't give a shit what the message is. They just see shiny, bright success. And I know it doesn't look that way all the time. That's the overall impact, and that's the end of the story. American Idol? Oh, wow. Let's take a lot of people who are very much like each other and pit them against each other until they destroy each other's careers, hopes, dreams, passion, power. And we get to hear one person at the end of the day sing something that doesn't do anything for me. That's not my medicine. None of these people have my medicine. The very few artists who have medicine that have spoken to me, they're not playing these games. And thankfully, they could get out now because you don't really need a distribution center. You don't really need a publicist. You need to make really good music and talk to people online. You'll get out enough to live, to travel, to be welcomed into someone's home, and to share. Now, what happened in the 60s and early 70s, this amazing thing started to move, but it didn't really have integrity. It was a rejection of the old power. It was a rejection of the old control. But it's Scylla and Charybdis, yo. It had its own problems. And the undercurrents were women were treated like garbage. Men were treated like garbage. The ones who won. All these other men were rejected, depressed, demoralized, hateful, fought with each other. But they were just the ones that wanted to be the ones that won. And out of this came a sense that, wow, we see this guy with all these women who love him. So all the other men in the world who love the music were like, had this bullshit expectation that this is a real life, to be loved by all these loose women. We lost the ability to criticize sexual promiscuity because you're a buzzkill, you're a bad person, you're a controlling freak if you suggest that maybe it might make a little bit of sense to be able to control your desires. And so the communities that thrived around these systems, they tortured each other. They tore each other apart. They fought all the time with who they called their best friends. They took women from each other. Women pitted men against each other to fight, to prove who was strongest. It was ugly. And fringe on that, this is going to be scary to keep following, by the way. If you want to get off now. Fringe on that is the porn industry. Do you hear of a movie called Deep Throat? The liberation said women were being controlled. Women were being told who they should be. You want to be a free woman. Don't let those men control you. Come fuck me. And you should fuck him too, because, wow, they're the ones that told you shouldn't, ignoring the fact that there is a severe biological reaction against constantly hopping around. There is, for everyone. Don't tell me otherwise. I'm not saying you can't cope with it or process it. I'm saying there is always a biological reaction against shifting. It messes with your vibe. Your body comes to life saying, I'm going to be a mate, and then you shut it down. You abort it. It's hurtful. It hurts you. If you don't know this is happening, you carry that pain. I'm not telling you anything moral. I'm not telling you what to do or what not to do. I'm just telling you this happens. But we weren't allowed to discuss it because it makes you sound prude, and it correlates to the essence that you're part of that control structure, which was truly atrocious. Any concept that a man could ever own a woman. Scylla and Charybdis, yo. Two monsters, got to go between them. Deep Throat. More recently, the woman who was in that movie said that Deep Throat was one of the first attempts at mainstreaming pornography. People went to the movie theater as an it thing to do it. It was like somewhat cool among many circles, certainly not everybody, but enough that it legitimized the whole thing. And the woman who was in that movie, when interviewed, suggested that in every scene, she felt like she was being raped. The porn industry isn't bad because it's immoral. It's bad because it gets you to invest your desire in a place that is fundamentally unhealthy. Until you know that you are investing your desire in love, you are investing your desire in everything about the life of the person you are fantasizing about. So you might see something that looks attractive to you, but is she doing drugs? Is she getting raped? Is she getting coerced? Is she getting her arm twisted to be there? Is she getting beaten to be there? And then the men, they're getting drugged too. I've met some of these people, far kinder and more interesting than you might think. They used Viagra. This one guy told me first year he was so excited. Next year he was sort of excited. 5 seeds a day, 4 seeds a day. He's traveling wherever he wants to go. By the end, he's using Viagra and he's depressed. Deeply depressed. When you fantasize, you want to know what you are fantasizing about. And I encourage you to recognize there is nothing short of love that's going to be healthy. The only thing a step away that I'd encourage you to do is recognize that you are not well yourself. You're shy, you're scared, you're petrified, you're uncomfortable. You don't know how to relate to your sexuality. You're scared of your power. You're scared of yourself. You're ashamed. You want to hide anything, all legit. Then hire a woman who is empowered and doing it on her own to help you. And treat her with respect. I don't encourage you to stay there. I encourage you to get over it, actually, because it's not healthy until it's love. When we fantasize, we're using our power to visualize, to ask for something. If you're fantasizing about something that's ultimately not good for you, you have to ask for it and then destroy it. Now you've taken 30% of your energy to ask for it, and by necessity, another 30% to destroy it. You've only got 40% of your life force left. Does that describe you? This is fundamental to address, to understand New Age reality. We can't just stay in this light area. Let's learn to manifest, unless you're willing to look at the dark side of all these patterns. When you put intense concentration and feeling into praying for something that is not good for you, you have to destroy that prayer. You ultimately lose a lot of energy and you undermine your own faith and courage to dream for what you really want to dream. Next. We're going to begin this one very simply. Thor is not a fucking superhero, you idiots. So Thor is a god. Thor exists. Thor is present. Thor gave me the go-ahead to say what I'm about to say. Yes, he agreed to participate in the current process of depicting him inaccurately. No, he does not think it's healthy. This is absurd. Name one movie in the past 20 years that has really moved you. I can't. I'm not saying it hasn't happened. I've watched some, but I can't. I meditated on this morning. I couldn't even remember anything. Couldn't even remember a single movie that moved me. They barely keep my attention. Barely. I always drift off into my mind because I'm aware of far more interesting things. I can't name a movie that is even, they're at the edge. They're remaking the same bullshit over and over and over again. They're not changing the fundamental plot lines. I have a right to kill you. How is it going to happen? Plot number one. I want to fuck you. How's it going to happen? Plot number two. Ugh! They're trapped. They're trapped in a mind that they can't get out of. And they're under the impression that paying more for computer-generated graphics and flip your attention, flip, look here. Why? Because they are helping you distract yourself from your pain. As best I can tell, that's their only purpose. It's fucking ridiculous. And it's worse than childish. There is so much abuse in these, so much abuse. At what point do you say no? Because what you get, the end product you get in music and porn and movies, television, it's nutrition. What are you feeding yourself? You are feeding yourself both mind and spirit. If you can't feel the energy that gets evoked when you pay attention to something for an extended period of time, you have one priority, and that's to learn to feel your spirit. Start with your heart. I am not telling you that I don't believe there's any good media out there. I'm telling you that I haven't seen any good media that depends on the money of Los Angeles. I wrote this song 10 years ago. I want you to listen, please. Even if you don't like the music, listen to the words. I attune to the living trees. Let them teach sustainable living. And I shall learn to trust her way again. And I shall learn to trust her way again. And if there is a way our love can dampen superstition, cleanse the essence of a land. Please design our faith so we can bring life back here. Calling on the name of love, dampen down the fires. Cleanse the essence of the land. Calling on the name of love, please help us understand. I want to know who is in command, because we are making choices we do not understand. And I'm hearing voices that speak for the land. Bridges are burning, people. The bridges in your psyche. LA can't take your pain anymore. LA has been taking your pain. The porn industry, the music industry, the movie industry have all been based there for half a century to a century. They can't take your pain. They were taking your pain. They were taking people's pain. They were processing people's pain. As much as I disdain what is being created there, it had a purpose. It had a purpose. It was processing people's pain when they couldn't handle it. And it was processing people's pain in a way that it didn't turn into war and rape. This is a crucial factor. We were in an era of war. We were in a terrible, cold, heartless space. There was a deep, dark, ugly, frightening forest in front of us, and we had to move through it. That forest was frightening because we were being asked to stop hating other people to the point where we thought we had the right to kill them and face our shit. War happens when a lot of people can't face their own baggage. They can't face the pain they have in their family. They can't face the resentment they have for their parents. They can't face their fear of the future and not knowing what to do. They can't face their anguish that they're not a better person, that they can't take care of their kids, that they don't know how to stay out of poverty. And you say, hate them. And it's easy. It's an out. And it's been used for thousands of years to channel people's awful feelings in a direction that's coherent. And then what do you get? Camaraderie. We're all together. We're all the same thing. We all hate them. It's a terrible, terrible choice. That's where we were, on the other side of a dark, ugly, frightening forest. And we were being told to go through the forest. But we were being told that there were movies on this flight. You could watch movies. You could watch porn. You could listen to music. And what did this porn and movies and music do? It took those stories and it put them into a screen so you could watch them. Now, look, it didn't always work. Some people watched it and they did develop their desire to live it out, but not most. For the most part, it was a substantial gift to humanity. It enabled people to engage their inner pain. Now, make no mistake, they were giving up their own energy. It's a tremendous sacrifice to give up your own energy in this way, but at least it wasn't going to be rechanneled into war. Now it was just put into the LA conduit. And it processed it. LA processed all this energy. And there are 25 million people who are in terror. I lived in LA. I healed in LA. I faced my deepest fears in LA. There's more beauty and care and grace there. And it's all based in the fact that the genuine nature of these systems was to help people heal. But the time is over. They don't know how to tell the stories of the future, and they're not going to learn, because the stories of the future are not passive. It's a different model. This needs to be frightening for many, at least older people. For you younger, below 30, maybe it's not so frightening. My generation, addicted to entertainment in the forms we were raised on. It's sacred, it's special. Letting go of it's terrifying. We were taught to watch and then talk later and relate to life based in the metaphors we were given in these stories. And it helped us process our pain and our fear and our confusion and our rage. But at a certain point, I don't want Bruce Willis in my head telling me to kill my enemies. I don't even want Aragorn in my head telling me that those people over there are orcs, because they aren't orcs. Let those who have ears hear. The stories of the future are participatory. The stories of the future design situations in which you can watch. It's sacred, but there's an avenue for you to share, to help, to throw down, to participate. Participate. You can join, you can learn, you can act, you can dream together to create something more beautiful. The stories of the future do not need corporate overlords. They need resilient, resourceful people who refuse to be shut down, who claim our right to be alive, to find our truth, to own our hearts, and to refuse to give them away to people who do not have similar deep, loving intentions.